Okay, so as you know, the current update had released a new machine that changed the meta forever. This tiny conveyor belt has shook the game and its players alike in both good and bad ways. Loved and yet criticized at the same time. That's not what this video is for though. I just want to tell you what this singular machine did for the game. Before I get into it though, there's a lot of misinfo out there. People think that certain tunes and or items don't affect the machine. I can promise you that they do. I spoke to a mod who has connections to the devs and they made it very clear that the conveyor belt is affected by movement speed. Anything that affects the tune's base speed should affect the speed of the machine as well. So this is sprinting, walking, tune abilities, items, trinkets, cards, you name it. Now, there is a possibility for bugs that I'm hearing from other players. I have yet to verify this, so I can't confirm or deny. It may be for now that those things don't currently affect the treadmill, but if it's true, that's just a bug, and the intended consequence is to have the tunes, including items, affect the conveyor belt. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's break stuff down. We'll talk about tunes. Then after that, items, followed by some miscellaneous. Alright, so starting off, this machine has just opened the roster for tunes to be more viable, or are finally on the radar, and they don't affect your runs in negative ways. Let's start off with Astro. He is a tune that is already good, but with this update, his active nap time became more viable. Most people who played Astro before the update usually reserved his abilities for distractors, dealing with stamina loss from his twisted counterpart. Or it was used at the very last few seconds on the elevator to help those tunes make it in. Of course, I personally didn't play like this all the time. I understood that you should use them even outside of those circumstances, but the majority of players just didn't do that. With this treadmill, however, he could use it to replenish a tune's stam in order to continue their sprint. It helps finish the machines faster than before. Or it could be used as a quick getaway for whenever there's a twisted nearby and the tune just so happens to have low stam. Alright, Bassie. She's another one. She has incredible movement speed and stamina. She's perfect for this machine. She can also use certain trinkets to help finish this machine faster, but we'll talk about that later. Blot is also perfect for this. High movement speed and incredible stamina. Basically, Bassie's opposite on the stats. What also makes him great is that if you're low on stam and you can't outrun your twisted, well, he has Blot Jr. to negate the negative effects of using up all your stam on the treadmill. And he can also use this for other tunes as well who spent all their stam but can't run away. I know this sounds kind of like a joke, but Bobette. She has decent movement speed, but incredible stamina. Her passive became somewhat viable. Of course, it's still minuscule compared to Star Pillow, but her festive aura regenerates Toons' stam by 50%. So you could be around a user on a treadmill and have them regen while using it, or after the machine's completion with their stam depleted, they could just stand around you for a bit, catch a quick break. Your stealth also comes in clutch to save those tunes who are out of breath. Also the jokes. The amount of jokes you can make. Yep, that's it. On to the next. Cole. To a decent extent, she has been seen as a pretty bad tune and now can be viable for this machine with her stats. If she can't be a good enough distractor like her other dog counterpart, then just get her on that treadmill. More big back jokes, of course. Coco, she became more viable. She has decent stats for this, but what's more important is her bonbon. Remember, it affects extraction, but also movement speed. It used to be that bonbon was mostly used for machines and maybe a quick escape, but now it's viable to use on the conveyor belt. Cosmo, to a certain extent. It used to be that he just roamed around and caused trouble because his skill check was so small. However, he doesn't need to be a burden anymore since his stats are decent enough for the treadmill. Finn and Shelly, it's not so much their stats because it's horrendous for the treadmill. However, their passive abilities increase their movement speed after they or other tunes complete machines. It's rather niche, but if other tunes are able to complete machines in a thorough and fast-paced manner, you can stack this increase in movement speed, and once that kicks in, get on the treadmill and watch the machine be completed, or get a lot done. Finn has an even greater boost than Shelly, so keep that in mind. Flutter, her stats are real nice, and she is no longer just a mediocre distractor. What I wish though is for her floaty dash to be used on machines. You can't do this currently, but it would work since it increases her movement speed for 0.75 seconds. If they allow for you to do this, then her ability is no longer just an escape skill. Something to think about. Someone better, though, that became more viable is her brother, Flight. While his stam is worse than Flutter's, movement speed is good, and his gust ability can help boost not just himself on that machine, but other Toons on the treadmill. It lasts for 10 seconds on the field. If you're in it, you gain 15% movement speed for 5 seconds. But since you're going to be in this field for longer, it'll just replenish. So realistically, it's 10. Very awesome. Goob to a decent extent. Listen, Extractor Goob can be a real thing. Plus, he won't be a burden to the team. He is no longer bound by the distractor role, and I think that's pretty cool. What makes this great is that even if you're a backup distractor, if you're in a situation where the main distractor has all the twisteds, you could be useful and work on treadmills in the meantime. That goes for any backup distractor, by the way. Louis, he just got more OP with his passive. I've seen very few Extractor Louis, but if you want to be one, now's the opportunity. Extractor Pebble is now an official thing, and you won't be a burden or an annoyance to the team. In fact, people would want some Extractor Pebble on the team. You're finally at peace. I don't know if I want to include Poppy since her passive is meant for escape. Theoretically, though, in a niche way, if a twisted hits you while on the conveyor belt, you can speed up that machine process by 50% for 3 seconds. Of course, you'll need someone to save you or be prepared to take a lot of damage. I would not recommend it, but wanted to put it out there for laughs, so as though Poppies couldn't get more stupider than before. Razzle and Dazzle, man, dude, they got it all now. It used to be that you had to lean one side or the other for extraction or distraction. However, you were only good half the time. If you decided to balance yourself out, well, guess what? You weren't as good as the Toons who leaned to extremes. It was really not that viable, but now, though, I highly recommend you try this. Get Magnifying Glass for the odd floors, aka extraction. Then get Clown Horn, since he switches to speed on even. You could be good at both extracting machines and, I'll nickname it, distracting machines. Massive viability buff for this guy. Rudy could have been buffed. While his stats are balanced, making him mid for pretty much anything, if you could use his ability on a machine, it would work on the treadmill since it buffs movement speed. If you can get this combination, Ghost Sticks in the can, as well as the active ability cooldown reduction cards, you could spam that movement ability every 8 seconds. Again, they don't allow for you to use this on machines, but it would be decent if you could. Sprout, his stats make him great for this machine. Basically blots. After you get all items and or tapes, if a Toon needs you to speed up the process on the treadmill, you're just the guy for the job. Plus more tapes and iCore for you. Tegan is decent, 3-star movement speed and 4-star stamina. Not bad. I personally wouldn't use her for that though, but she's there if you want to. Ah, Tisha. Her active ability gives a 25% movement speed buff for 5 seconds. It's official. Her ability does help in extractions. See, I was just ahead of time. You can't handle prophecy. Last but not least, Yada. I mean, what can I say? She became more busted than ever before. Not only is she fast, but her passive allows for her to get candy items. Some of those items are really good for the treadmill. I'll talk about the items later, though. That stam is a killer for her, so she will likely not be able to sprint as much, especially if there's a looming threat. There's cards to mitigate that, though, if you can even get that far. For items, I'll speak in a general sense. It used to be that for speed items, you could use them for a quick getaway. Now, however, you could use it for the treadmills. Same with stam items. You usually use it for emergency purposes to escape a high attention span twisted. Or you could use it after to regen faster. Now, though, you could use it for the treadmill after you spend your stamina. Here's the items that became more viable. Gumballs, chocolate, stamina candy, pop, speed candy, protein bar. Ironically, it's very fitting for the theme of the treadmill. Jawbreaker, bonbon, as explained before, bottle of pop, box of chocolates, and finally, eject button. Now for trinkets, speedy shoes got more viable due to walk and run speed. These both affect movement speed. Speedometer, kind of. 15 extra stam. That's 1.5 stam cards if you think about it. I personally still would not use this, but it does have more viability now, if you wish. Thermos increases stam regen by 15%. Combine this with Bobette's passive or Star Pillow, and you're looking at fast stam regeneration without items. Pull Toy is niche, but if you get to a treadmill fast enough, then it'll work. Pop Pack, it provides a pop every floor, and you could use that for the treadmills when low on stam. Cooler, honestly, I still would not recommend this because while it does give you 50 more stam, it decreases movement speed by 5%. If you're a toon with high movement speed, then the effects will be drastic compared to a toon who has low movement speed. I'd say if you're already slow, you could, but even if you're a toon with low movement speed but high stam like Scraps, the speed for the machine's completion will be mid. Clown Horn and Ribbon Spool, walk and run speed increased by 10% for odd or even numbered floors. Sweet Charm and Ghost Sticks in a Can, they both decrease ability cooldown, and this works for characters like we mentioned prior who affect movement speed or stam. Feather Duster and Bone. Bone affects the movement speed for picked up items by 25% for 4 seconds. Feather Duster restores 20 stam when picking up an item. Remember how I mentioned Bassie got more viable, especially with trinkets? She could drop all 4 items, pick them back up, and you're talking about a 100% increase in movement speed from the bone alone, and 80 stam regenerated from Feather Duster. She could infinitesimally sprint with high movement speed. Telling you, man, such a good combination. Perfect for the treadmill. Big Bow has a run speed increase of 7.5. Very good for the treadmill. Dog Plush, you aren't always going to be sprinting on the conveyor belt, so this helps mitigate stamina waste. Friendship Bracelet gives you 5 extra stam per toon alive. If everyone is alive and well, that's 40 without a Bane. I, however, still would not use this, but buffs above. Star Pillow got a massive viability buff. Stamina regeneration increased by 100% while extracting on a machine. If you walk it, you'll be gaining that stam back in no time. Stack this with Bobette, Thermos, or both, and it's even more busted than before. I think this would vary on the toon, though. They definitely need to add that 3rd trinket slot. Please do. I beg of you. Just do it. Peppermint Icing. Every time you use an active, you gain 30 stamina per usage. It would be effective on toons you could spam this with, like Rudy, but he can't dash while extracting. Still is viable for other toons, but again, 3rd trinket slot would definitely help here. Last we got on the trinkets is Glazed Fondant Bag. 4 extra seconds on the duration of candy. We just explained the candy items, so no doubt this trinket helps. Finally, Miscellaneous. This would be the cards. Well-paced and endurance increases max stamina of all toons by 10. Self-explanatory. The Dials card is the most powerful here. Much like the previous cards mentioned, this one increases the max stam by a staggering 50. You can run for a long time with these cards on the treadmill. And I think that's pretty much it. That's what the treadmill did for Dandy's World. Hope you enjoyed. And with that, I'm going to be calling it here. Goodbye. Goodbye.